Alright, in this lesson we're going to look at how to further do some edits on this fat plate. How to see what kind of geometry is, how to maybe make some corrections if it ends up with being a surface geometry versus a solid, and just some other sculpting details with it. So this is kind of where I left off at the last assignment. I converted this. I am in the modeling side. This is a body. It is a watertight form, so when it converted, it made it actually into a solid body. And if I go to the inspect tool and go over here and do a section analysis and twizzle open the origin folder here and just kind of highlight these different planes. Let's see if I can pick one. There we go. And you can actually grab this and pull this through at this point if you want to see it, but you can see it's a solid. Okay, different thickness, so depending on where we are as we go through it, but hash lines indicating that it's a solid. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and do some further edits with this. So to get back into the sculpt form when you've already created something, go down here in the timeline, right mouse click on the sculpted entity, go up and say edit. Now we're back in there. We can start working. Now, part of the deal is if you've saved a file, closed it, opened it back up, and I come back into the sculpt environment, any of that history of all those steps is lost. If I haven't closed the file yet, then yes, they'll still be there within reason that you can kind of back out of this and do steps with it. But notice there's only one entity down here on the timeline, the sculpted form. There's not like its own little mini timeline, at least not yet. Alright, so one of the first things I want to show you is I want to go in and kind of further sculpt around these edges, maybe make it tighter edges there, try to pull it down a little bit further, or do some other sculpting. So I'm going to go in and look to see if I can just maybe double click on this edge. But notice what happens is I end up picking the loop there. Whereas if I click on this double edge, it selects that edge. Okay, so if I want to pick these outer edges like that, unfortunately I just have to kind of manually go through and do it. So let me start doing that. Okay, it's a little tedious, but as you can see, if you set up and hit it right, you can select these edges pretty quickly. Now you can do things like that where you screw up and select a face instead of an edge. So just go in and shift click to deselect it and then pick the right corner there as well. Now let's say I know I'm probably going to do several sculpting exercises with this kind of edges I just selected. So before I do anything, I can right mouse click, and in the pop-up, one of the options is to create a selection set. Okay, so let's do that. Over here we get a new folder called selection sets, and right there is our actual selection set that it just created. If I click off of this and come up and roll outside of this, okay, click right there to select, that's the way you repick it. It also tells you the number of entities in it, which that's good to know, because by chance you miss one and it's an odd number, I picked evenly, so it can tell you things like that as well. Alright, so we got our edges picked. I'm going to right mouse click, say edit form. With this we can, probably one of the first things to try is just to scale it out a little bit. Okay, so push that out a little bit, tightens up the edges, good. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay, now you got to be careful once again, create edges like that that are just, they're actually almost touching on top of one another, so that's definitely not good. Let's pull it back just a touch. Okay, go that direction with it. There we go. Alright, so that's a little tough to kind of go in and select or do too much more with this at this point. Okay, one thing I could try to do is double click on these outer edges, and while you're in the edit form tool, you can easily switch from edges like I was to picking faces, and I'll just click on it, something that's not already selected basically. Alright, let's see if I can double click on these and real quickly go around and select this, holding down the shift key once again. Okay, looks like I got everything. So I can pull this up to get a little thickness to it. Alright, looking pretty pretty good. And I can scale it as well if I wanted to scale it in and out to kind of give it a little bit shape. I'll pull it in just a hair. Okay. Now, what I want to do at this point, I'm looking at it going, that's pretty tight, but I think it's still good. Okay. I had a student ask me one time, I want to put a circle in the middle of this. So, like a plate, a square, maybe a circle part, that's the recess part. So, here's one method to do it. If I pull out, and once again use my option to select from left to right, anything that's inside of that gets selected. Okay, now let's try that again. Pick through there. I want to make sure underneath my selection that it's still set to like select all, which it definitely is. I'm going to toggle it off and on just to kind of make sure it resets. Okay, do a little bounding box, make sure I'm picking. I'm not quite sure why it's not picking that way. Let's try it another way. Go to the top view. We'll do this one. Okay. It's still kind of doing some weird options as far as picking. So I'm just going to manually real quick the ones I want. Alright, there we go. Now, here's the technique I came up with. You pick the area you want to kind of recess, and then you basically pick the faces. You delete them. When you do, you're left with a hole like that. Okay? Now, that's a continuous edge. So if I want to sculpt that, I can just double click on it, say Edit Form, and I can scale it outward. So I'll do that to kind of, once again, tighten the edges up a little bit. Now, okay, that's working good, but that's really a rectangle. It's just rounded off a little bit. So one thing you can try is switch and pick only the vertices at the corners. Okay, just 4 of them like that. And then go in and do a proportional scale. Okay, now notice as I come in, because it's only those points, it's pulling around these edges. And let's see what it looks like from the top view. Now, that's pretty darn just lucky that I got that symmetrical as far as the edge. So, but as you can see, you get a circular geometry now. I can come back out, double click on it again, and once again, I just picked the 4 vertices at the corners, okay, and kind of sculpted those, and it worked out to be circular. I'll go back in now, double click on the edge, and I'll scale that out a little bit, okay, and I'll hold down the Alt key, click on the vertical arrow there and pull it downwards, and now I'll make a little lip out of that. Okay, go down a little bit, give it some thickness there. I'll now do scaling, so I'll hold down the Alt key again, click on the scale icon, make sure I'm going the right direction, and there's my next piece that's flattened out like that. Now it looks like, once again, I'm running into these edges. So I'm going to actually pull this up a little bit. Well, actually before I do that, let's just back out a little bit. Okay, at this stage, I'll pull that up. Okay, and then I'll hold down the Alt key and do the scaling again. And let's just go ahead and kind of visualize, check it. It looks pretty good. Okay, so now, if I want to keep a sharp edge there, okay, what I can do is do that first one. Okay, gotta set the amount of tightness or radius. Hold down the Alt key again, click and drag a second time. Notice it keeps it there and doesn't do anything. Okay, and let's see if we can use this trick. If I go ahead and type in a 0 scale value, okay, pulls everything together and does it, kind of closes up the form. Now, the question is that really a closed form? If I close this, notice it did actually make this into a solid body. Okay, so that method of 0 scaling kind of pulled this together and kind of created the finished form that we needed. Now I'm going to undo this because I want to show a couple of things before I do that option to basically go in, back up one more, to go in and close it up. I'm going to do a finish form at this point. Okay, what I get differently is this is an open form, so when it converts from T-spline into the solid, it can't actually make a solid, it makes a surface, and that's what that icon is indicating. Okay, So that is, one thing to could do. Now it's an open plate. It's, like we made a ceramic and left a hole in the bottom of it. This time the hole's on the top. Not really useful. So I'll switch over to the patch tool. Patch tool is basically surfaces tool. And one of the more common one is this one called patch. If you double or click on an edge and say go, now notice we got two surfaces. That one in the middle, which just created, and that one. Okay? Then we don't have a solid yet. What we have to do is go in and say modify and stitch these two together. So I pick that one and I pick that one. When I do, that little green edge is indicating that it's good to go. And if I just hit return, notice it makes a solid form, as my little icon over there is indicating. So that's perfectly valid if by chance you end up with a form and you want to, good thing about this, it's planar. Is what we have in there in the middle with it. Now, if I go back and edit this form, I want to point out those two steps of doing the surface patch and the stitch come after the T-spline form. Okay. Now, within reason, I can modify this. If I come and double click on that edge again and say edit form, I can scale this out. Okay. Do something like this, hit OK, and then try to do finish form. Ends up those two steps go through because it was that same edge and just moved it out and did it that way. Okay, so that's once again how you can further modify this and to make it into a solid form, and two different approaches as far as kind of closing up a form like this, and then also making something circular basically by just eyeballing it, by only picking the vertices, those four in the corners, and that pulls everything else in. Alright, so that'll finish this lesson for now.